When you go through the Finance Bill 2021, as we mentioned, there are 16 changes. Out of these 16 changes, 15 changes are with respect to the Central GST Act. And there is one change, that is Section 16 is proposed to be amended of IGST Act. As far as CGST Act is concerned, please note, out of the 15 changes, 12 changes would be applicable from a date to be notified. However, there are 3 changes which are expected to be applicable from 1st July 2017, that is directly from the date when the GST Act was introduced, that is with a retrospective effect. Now let us understand which are these 15 changes from the CGST Act, and then we will decode the changes related to IGST Act. When you go through the CGST Act related changes, you will be surprised to know that the very first section which is proposed to be amended is Section 7. As all of you are aware, Section 7 deals with scope of supply. You would have already noticed in the 3.5 years that as far as all the definitions or meanings of certain terms are concerned, they are contained in Section 2. However, surprisingly, as far as the meaning of the term supply is concerned or scope of the term supply is concerned, it is specifically mentioned by carving out a separate section, that is Section 7. Now this Section 7 is proposed to be amended by introducing a new subclause in this Section 7 subclause 1. Let us understand what this new subclause is for. Friends, if you start to read Section 7, you would have noticed the Section 7 heading is scope of supply. That means it is telling us that there is a limited scope to the term supply, because Section 7 is not talking about definition of supply or meaning of supply, but rather it is saying scope of supply. After that, the subclause 1 of Section 7 says, for the purpose of this act, the expression supply includes. And when it talks about inclusion, there are 3 subclauses, A, B and C. Now there is a 4th new subclause which the government is proposing to introduce by way of Finance Bill 2021. And this subclause is a subclause referred as AA. What this subclause is trying to say, let us understand. The subclause is referring about the fact that there are certain activities or transactions which are taking place between a club and its member, and these activities or transactions would henceforth be referred to as supply. Now please note, friend, this subclause AA is to be applicable, is to be introduced right from day 1 of GST law, that is from 1st of July 2017. So this subclause is proposed to be introduced from a retrospective effect. Additionally, please note, you would already notice that the reason for introduction of this subclause is a particular judgment, that is the judgment of Kolkata Club Limited, which was delivered by the Supreme Court in 2019. And please note, it's a larger bench judgment. So by way of introducing this new subclause, what the government is trying to do is basically indirectly overrule that particular judgment of Supreme Court. All of you would be aware that a judgment of a Supreme Court cannot be directly overruled. While you can remove the basis based on which the judgment is standing, but you cannot directly overrule that particular judgment. However, when we are going to go through the terminology of the provision, you will be surprised to know that it appears that this provision is trying to overrule that particular judgment of the Supreme Court. Now, whether this kind of overruling is possible, that itself is a big question mark. Second, whether you can overrule a particular judgment right from day 1 of the GST law, that is by giving it a retrospective effect, that is another interesting aspect which you will have to see in days to come. So let us understand what this AA subclause is trying to say. Friend, the terminology which is used in this subclause is for the purpose of this act, the expression supply includes, and it says AA, the activities or transaction by a person other than an individual to its member or constituent for consideration. Correct? I am not using or referring the terminology which is mentioned, but I am just trying to simplify it. So what it is trying to say, that an activity or a transaction between the club and its member for a consideration would practically be subject to GST, because that transaction will qualify as a supply. Now please note that the terminology which is used in AA clause is the transaction or activities. It is not talking about supply of goods or service or both. That is one interesting difference which you can make out if you refer to subclause A and compare that with AA subclause. Correct? So for the very first time, this transaction, that is Section 7, is talking about activities and transaction. That means it is not trying to bifurcate between supply of goods or service or both, but it is trying to even enlarge the scope of supply by referring to the term activities or transaction. And it's an interesting development, I would say. Again, in days to come, how these terms would be interpreted by the higher court would be an interesting aspect to see for all of us. After this subclause AA, there is a specific explanation which is introduced. Now, the subclause AA is saying that supply includes, and then it says activities or transaction, correct, for consideration. So when there are activities or transaction for consideration between the member and the club, they are saying that it would be qualifying as practically supply. Now then this explanation to this AA subclause says, for the purpose of this clause, it is hereby clarified, notwithstanding anything contained in any other law, for the time being in force, or any judgment, decree or order of any court, tribunal, the person and member thereof shall be deemed to be two separate persons. Means indirectly or directly, I would say, the judgment of Supreme Court herein, you can see, is trying to, the government is trying to overrule this particular judgment of the Calcutta Club Limited. Now whether this kind of explanation can directly overrule the judgment, as we said, is going to be a big question. Additionally, friends, please note that this judgment was delivered in 2019, correct? And though the judgment was in the context of service tax law, the judgment was based on certain constitutional provision, that is Article 366(29)(a). Now, the very first question which will come to our mind would be that the judgment was delivered on the basis of the constitutional provision. If you look at the amendment which is being proposed to be done, the amendment is proposed to be done in the CGST Act. The constitutional provision right now also are standing as it is. So without amending the constitution, that is without removing the basis of the Supreme Court judgment, can you, by introducing amendment in the act, can you overrule the judgment of the Supreme Court is going to be debated in days to come. However, as far as the taxpayers are concerned, we will recommend that because this amendment the government is trying to specifically introduce by introducing a AA subclause, if you are a member or club and if you have taken a position of not paying taxes based on the earlier judgment of Supreme Court, that is Calcutta Club Limited, maybe you might have to revisit the tax position which you are already adopted. Friend, that was the amendment which was there in section 7. Now let us understand what are the other amendments which are of relevance to all of us. But before that, let me tell you that even Schedule 2, which is there under the CGST Act, and even Schedule 2, there is one serial number 7, which was talking about supply of goods between the club and the member. That subclause is now proposed to be deleted right from day 1 of the GST law, that is from 1st of July 2017. Again, what could be the purpose? Because there is now a specific explanation, because there is a specific subclause which is trying to tax the activities between the club and its member thereof. The government thought it is not necessary now to keep that kind of a subclause in the Schedule 2, and that's the reason that particular subclause is proposed to be deleted right from 1st July 2017. Now let us understand what are other amendments. The other amendment in the CGST Act are numerous, that is there are 14 amendments, but out of that one critical amendment is amendment in section 16. All of you are aware section 16 talks about or deals with input tax credit, correct? It specifies or it mentions about eligibility and conditions for taking input tax credit. And when you talk about conditions, if you refer to subclause 2 of section 16, you would already notice that there are 4 conditions which you need to fulfill before you can claim input tax credit. Now these 4 conditions, all of you would be aware. The first condition is you should be in possession of the tax invoice. Second condition is that you should have received the goods or services. Third condition is that the tax should be actually paid to the government. And the fourth condition is you should have, as a buyer, you should have filed the return. Now the government is trying to introduce a 5th condition in these conditions, correct? So there would be a 5th condition now which you will have to fulfill before you can claim input tax credit. And the 5th condition is that the supplier, that is your supplier or vendor, should have filed his GSTR1 so that you as a recipient you are in a position to see that input tax credit, or that particular invoice in your GSTR 2A or 2B. Now friends, you would already notice that this kind of a procedural, I would say, or rule-based provisions were already there under the GST law. If you go through Rule 36 subclause 4, or if you go through the form 2A or 2B based on which all of us are claiming input tax credit at present, this condition was already being enforced. That is, we were told that you can claim only input tax credit when the vendor is filing his return. And there was a additional input tax credit which was granted to us. That is, earlier it was 20%. It was brought down to 10% and subsequently it was brought down to 5%. And maybe in days to come, we would be in a position to claim only the input tax credit which is appearing online. Now, in various court of law, this particular provision, that is Rule 36 subclause 4, was being already contested, and this was contested on the contention that you are introducing a condition or you are putting some restriction by introducing an amendment in the rule itself rather than amending the act. So maybe that was one of the major contention of the taxpayer, and that's the reason the government is now trying to amend the act itself and bring that condition in section 16, that is in the act itself. But friends, please note that there are certain basic principles of law. And one of the basic principle is that if a default is being done by someone else, I cannot be penalized, correct? But unfortunately, if you look at section 16, the way it is right now worded, and particularly the new subclause, it is talking about the fact that if my supplier or vendor is not filing the return, as a recipient, as a buyer, as a genuine buyer, I would not be in a position to claim credit in spite of the fact that I have a copy of the tax invoice, I have actually received the goods or services, I have paid the taxes to the supplier or vendor, and finally I have filed the return. So if as a recipient I have done all the things which were supposed to be done by me, correct? Can you penalize, as a government, can you penalize me for the non-compliance by the vendor himself, correct? Now that particular kind of a provision, that particular kind of a principle, I would say, would be certainly contested and tested in the court of law in days to come. However, as a taxpayer, certainly this condition is going to create certain challenges, and that's the reason, friend, now all of us as a taxpayer we need to be very careful about our 2A and 2B. Unless and until the credit is appearing in 2B, it would be preferable for you not to claim the credit unless and until the vendors are uploading the return. Although all of us can contest, we can go to the court of law and fight it as a right to claim input tax credit. However, still please note that if the amounts are not substantial, it would not be worth it, because you are going to invest substantial amount of time as well as cost to fight or go in the court of law. So it is much better for us to ensure that the vendors are complying with the law. In certain exceptional cases, if you have complied with all the provisions of law, that is, you have received the goods, paid the taxes, everything, then maybe, and you followed up with the vendor and still he has not filed. In such cases, in exceptional cases where the amounts are substantial, maybe you can take this kind of provisions you can contest, saying that I would be in a position to claim the credit and I will go to the court of law for my right to claim input tax credit. But if your situation is not like this, we will recommend that it is much better for you to follow up with the vendor and ensure that the vendors are filing their GSTR1 so that the credit is appropriately appearing in 2A or 2B. Now friends, apart from these major two changes which have taken place in section 7 and section 16, there are few other important changes also. One of the change which the government has introduced is the change in section 35 of the GST law, which deals with audit, that is form 9C, and another in annual return, that is section 44, which deals with form GSTR 9. Friends, please note, going forward, after this amendment becomes applicable, it is said that GST audit would not be applicable. That means practically the professionals who are right now certifying the reconciliation statement would not be required to certify this 9C. There would not be any requirement to do so. But please note, friend, as per as the new section, that is section 44, which is a substituted section, correct? New section means a new section has been introduced by substituting earlier section 44. Now this new section 44, it reads as that there would be a requirement to file annual return for certain class of taxpayers, but at the same time, some of such taxpayers would be required to file a reconciliation statement also. But please note that this reconciliation statement would be self-certified. These would be self-certified by the taxpayers. That means what? The government is saying that as far as certification by chartered accountant or cost accountant concerned, that would not be applicable going forward. But at the same time, that doesn't mean the audit has gone away completely. What the government is saying, that as part of the annual return exercise itself, we are going to introduce the reconciliation statement also. That means your annual return, if it is having certain number of boxes, like say it is having say 350 boxes which you are filing right now, then the audit related details you will have to now add in the annual return itself. That means practically, if you ask me, as a taxpayer, the requirement of audit is not going away, rather it is getting clubbed. So there is an annual return and there is audit which will have to be togetherly done, correct? and the annual return would be uploaded or submitted by the taxpayer, and it would be practically a self-certification. So rather than a chartered accountant certifying it, the taxpayer himself would be doing it. So as far as taxpayers are concerned, the annual return form is going to be lengthy, or it might double in size, and that submission requirement, that submission responsibility now would be on the shoulders of the taxpayer themselves rather than the tax professionals.